remember a friend of mine who's super progressive, super liberal. You know, when I talked about it on a podcast, I'm like, this is crazy. Even if he wins, he's not going to be the guy that's the president. You're going to have his cabinet that are running everything. Yeah. Turned out I was right. And they were saying, oh, don't you understand that he has a stutter? And I said, where the fuck was that stutter in the 1990s? Like, that's crazy. That's right. Like a stutter that only shows up when you're 80? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lie. You're lying. He's had 2 brain surgeries, like where they have to take the top of your head off. Literally, they have to take like a cap.
Wait, Biden had 2 brain surgeries?
Oh, yeah.
How did I not know this?
You didn't know this?
I didn't know that he had 2 brain surgeries.
He had 2 brain surgeries. Jimmy, please look this up. Make sure that I'm right. I'm 99% sure.
100% believed he was better.
The thing is, he might still have been the best option.
He might be. But and that's fine.
We don't know what would have happened if the Kamala Harris administration had been a continuation of the Biden administration.
So Joe Rogan had J.D. Vance back on the podcast for a second appearance a few weeks back, and it went exactly as you'd expect. Joe barely pushed back at all and basically just gave Vance a free platform to gear himself up for a 2028 campaign. Vance is the one always sent out to eat shit whenever there's some PR disaster Trump needs to deal with, so he really needs every opportunity he can to appease his potential voter base. But this video is less about that and more just about how spineless Joe is. Over the past few months, a lot of Joe's orbiters have been very critical of Trump for walking back on some of his campaign promises. And obviously you have people like Tucker Carlson just straight up saying he regrets voting for him. You can debate whether they're being sincere or not. You know, maybe they're just trying to save face with their audiences now that Trump's approval rating is so low, but at least they're smart enough to notice it and act accordingly. Meanwhile, Joe is out here, no issue at all, still associating with the Trump admin and running defense for them. Back in the day, Joe had this aesthetic of being fair and nonpartisan, but that just totally disappeared in the past few years, despite what he still insists.
You're just being manipulated, and you're being manipulated by these 2 teams, and you have to pick a team. You have to decide which team are you on.
I hate that.
It's so stupid. I'm politically homeless. I've always been I've been politically homeless for a long fucking time. Neither one of them make any sense to me. We need like a logical centrist government.
He's so shameless about it, he can't even bring himself to really sit with the criticism of Trump without deflecting it back onto the Democrats. Like when Shane Gillis was on the podcast a few months back, they brought up these unhinged plaques that Trump decorated the White House with that basically just trash former presidents. Joe does say they're bad, but then still somehow finds a way to bring the Democrats into it, and he starts seething about Newsom.
Somebody needs to tell him, like, hey, this is not good. You can't do that. Because then other people could do that too. And then the White House stops being the White House and it becomes whoever's in its house, where he could just go crazy and say everybody else is a crook.
I don't think anyone's going to do what he's doing. I don't think there's. I mean, look.
God,
look
I hope not. But it opens up. The problem is, it opens up the door for someone on the left to do their version of it.
Who's going to be the Democrat? Who's next? Fucking Gavin Newsom? He's not going to fucking put up a plaque.
Of course he would. Of course he would. He copies everything that Trump does. He even tries to talk like Trump on Twitter. You don't think that he would put up plaques that talk about how corrupt Trump was and about how terrible, and he was quoted as lying over 5,000 times by Washington Post?
It's like he got more angry at the situation he just made up in his head than the fact that Trump actually already did it. It's really something to watch. So yeah, with all his friends turning on Trump, right on cue, Joe has Vance back on the podcast and just lets him breeze through. There are 100 different topics Joe could have challenged him on, but instead he gossips about Biden having brain surgeries. Because, you know, that's super relevant right now, and Trump is just such a great speaker himself, right? Obama! With how hard a lot of Joe's friends are on Trump, I'm sure they realize Joe is still being a useful mouthpiece for him, but of course, they can't really say anything directly to him, you know, gotta kiss the ring and all. Like, Joe had on his longtime friend Cam Haines recently, and there was this really fascinating interaction between them where they were talking about how the Trump admin brings in celebrities for photo ops, and it was so painfully obvious that Cam wanted Joe to understand it applied to him too, since only a few months ago Joe was in the White House doing exactly what Cam was describing.
And Trump signed an executive order, something about public land, and all it was a pomp and circumstance photo op to get executive order. Nothing has happened to it. Nothing has happened with it. No action's been taken. It was like, all it was just, they could make a press clipping out of it. A theater. And nothing's going to change. Nothing changes. Nothing's protected. So that's what I feel like a lot of these times, if I get invited there, it's for that, is to make my base, if I have a base, I'm not a politician, but to make my people like feel a little better about whatever's going on.
It was a great chance for Joe to self-reflect like Cam had been doing, but obviously he wasn't interested in that. And like bringing Vance on the podcast unchallenged is just the ultimate form of lending support to the admin. We all know these days that Joe tends to mirror the person sitting across from him during any given podcast, but sometimes he'll just so blatantly contradict himself that I genuinely can't tell if he's lying or having like a real psychotic break or what. Like last month, he was saying how Trump always gets cheers at UFC events and how the crowds always love him. But then a clip surfaced from a few years ago where he says the exact opposite.
People say he got booed at the UFC. I've seen him at the UFC 6 times or something like that. I don't know how many times. Never get booed.
They love him.
He's never gotten booed. They fucking cheer. The people that say they booing him, you're distorting reality. It's not true. They cheer him like he walks in there to the American Badass song. They booed the fuck out of him at the UFC.
Oh, were you there?
Yeah.
Oh, because I heard from one camp that they cheered, and from another camp that his son said they cheered for him.
Listen to Daddy. I took my fucking headphones off just to listen, and it was woo, woo.
Really?
Yeah, man. 18,000 people going. Woo.
Damn. His son said they were chanting USA.
Maybe 4 people behind him were chanting USA.
I think the most upsetting part about all this is that it's not like Joe is incapable of challenging a guest. He's done that plenty. We know he has it in him. He's just so selective about when he bares his teeth and becomes so weak when he has a guy like Vance on that he loses any credibility. It's at the point where he won't even entertain a podcast with someone he dislikes or disagrees with politically. Like Gavin Newsom has been taunting Joe for a while now, and Joe is definitely aware of it all. I mean, if nothing else, it would be a massive podcast, so really there's no downside for him. But Joe just keeps saying he's full of shit. And just take a moment to appreciate the irony of saying this across the table from JD Vance of all people. He's just so politically homeless, right? Now, with all that said, I gotta give him credit where credit is due. Joe finally upped his wardrobe on this podcast with Vance, coming out wearing a nice polo. Because every other time he has on these high-profile guests or films one of his comedy specials, he wears these really goofy-looking long-sleeve shirts, and it's just a complete disaster every time. My favorite is this piss yellow one he wore here.